I want to bring in Jeffrey Pyatt. He is the U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, joining us now from Kiev. Thank you so much, Mr. Ambassador. Let me ask you straight up. Russia is saying, listen, we don't really have any power over these separatists who have taken over Ukrainian government buildings on the border with Russia. Do you believe that?
Well, we believe that Russia has influence over some of these groups, and we hope they will exercise it to try to make the Geneva framework a success. We're convinced this is the best chance that we've got to achieve a diplomatic de-escalation of this crisis, and we're working hard at it.
I know you are. I think the question is, what next if it does not work? Do you see this, let's say, a civil war breaking out at least along in those eastern border areas? Do you see Russia moving in? And what has the U.S. got to offer here?
Well, Candy, let me say this. I'm actually just coming from a meeting with Foreign Minister Deshitsa and the ambassador who heads the OSCE Special Monitoring Mission, along with my EU and Russian counterparts. And I think we all reaffirmed today in this setting our collective commitment to trying to make the Geneva framework a success. There are obviously some real challenges at this point, including some new violence this morning in Slavyansk in eastern Ukraine. But we also believe that there has been some progress. I'm seeing reports this morning that at least one of these government buildings now has a Ukrainian flag flying over it. And the OSCE has monitors on the ground who are reaching out, engaging with local political elites, seeing if there's a way to de-escalate the crisis. So right now we're planning for success. On your question about civil war and violence, you know, what I hear from Ukrainians across the board, and especially on this Easter holiday, is a desire to bring everybody together. There are obviously efforts from small, isolated groups to stir division, but that's not what I hear from most Ukrainians, including, I should add, Ukrainians in the East.
Is it really small groups, or is it Russian activated because President Putin would very much love to see strife so that he can use the same excuse he used when he took over in Crimea and say, well, I just came in to protect Russian citizens?
Well, Candy, the reports that we're getting, including from the OSCE monitors, make clear that we're really just talking about a couple of hundred people at most of these sites. And the polling data also thing, which is that Ukrainians want to be part of a unified, prosperous, politically stable country. There's obviously some reason for unhappiness, especially economic problems in the East. We've been very impressed by what Prime Minister Yatsenyuk has done. He and Acting President Turchinov gave some important remarks on Friday night where they talked about what the government is prepared to do in terms of additional authorities for local governments, deepening democracy, completing the process of democratization that was begun here after independence from the Soviet Union. I think that's where efforts are going to focus at this point. There is an apparent effort from outside to try to stir division, as you say. But I'm convinced that those who are trying to stimulate separatism, who are preaching violence, are not going to find resonance, because that's not what I hear from the people of Ukraine in terms of what they want. The people in the East would like to hear more from Kyiv, and Kyiv is trying to provide that.
One of the things that we also know is that the government in Kyiv has, in fact, asked the U.S. For some weaponry. Now, the U.S. has given non-lethal aid, but so far has not responded or given any lethal aid. So we have Ukraine here outnumbered and outmanned by anything the Russians may have. We are offering support and some non-lethal aid to them. But what are they to do if there is a movement across the border from Russia, which is not an off-the-wall kind of thing to think about happening? Should we not, at some point, say, here is the wherewithal you need to help defend your land?
Well, Candy, I think the fact is that the geography, the balance of power is such that there is no military solution to this crisis. It has to be solved through diplomacy. That's something that Prime Minister Yatsenyuk himself says. The government has asked us for non-lethal military assistance, and as you noted, Secretary Hagel, the Pentagon, had some additional announcements last week in terms of additional assistance that we are providing, non-lethal assistance. But the fact is, militarily, as Crimea demonstrated, Ukraine is outgunned. And so our efforts have been focused on diplomacy, focused on economic support. I should say, I believe the strongest answer, the best answer to aggression from Russia at this stage is, first of all, an economically prosperous Ukraine, a Ukraine that's moving forward with support from the international community, and most importantly of all, successful, freely contested democratic elections on May 25th. There is no better answer to Russia than Ukrainians coming together and voting in those polls on the 25th of May.
Finally, we're learning that the U.S. is going to do some training exercises in Poland and Estonia, sort of designed to reassure some of those NATO countries that the U.S. is there for them militarily. It's going to involve about 150 U.S. soldiers, which we're told to take place over 2 weeks. When we have allies in the region who are looking at 40,000 Russian troops along the border of Ukraine, already with a history of taking over a part of Ukraine, how much reassurance is 150 U.S. troops doing training exercises?
Well, Candy, I would say I think we have a fabulous partnership with our European allies here. We have the same strategic objectives vis-a-vis Ukraine. And over the long term, the thing that's going to make Ukraine stable and an effective partner for all of the Europeans is this free trade agreement, which will be implemented beginning from next month. And then also, hopefully over the next couple of months, the full implementation of the European Association Agreement that Prime Minister Yatsenyuk signed in Brussels last month. So I think as we work with the Europeans, they share the same approach that I described as U.S. policy. Working to make a Ukraine which is politically stable, moving forward, moving to a closer institutional relationship with Europe. And that's something that the majority of Ukrainians seek, and something which we believe strongly no outside power should be in a position to try to thwart.
Jeffrey Pyatt, U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, thank you so much for your time this morning. It has